It's such a long testimony. I don't know where to start. It was just too extreme for me. Like, the examples of what Christianity and what coming to God looked like were just too much, and too much of a sacrifice for me at that time. I was just like, this ain't for me. Like, and I love God and I do want to know more, but not if it looks like this. Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Shaughnessy and welcome to my channel where I dare you to live, be, and do. If you are new to my channel, this is the space, this is the place where I shamelessly share my life in hopes of inspiring you to live yours. There was a point in my life where I felt completely lost and I felt like everything looked good on the outside, but on the inside, it was so much going on, so much weight, so much. And so what I did was I decided to pivot, turn to God, and I never looked back. And so this channel is about me sharing that journey, what it took to get there, what it takes to stay there, and how much I love the current life that I live because of that choice that I made. So on today's video, I'm going to be sharing my testimony. And you would think this video would be one of the easiest for me to do, but for some reason I really dreaded doing this one because it's so emotional and it's just such a robust story. I feel smart that I use that word, but you know what I'm saying? It's so much, and so I might have to break this video up. I'm gonna see how it flows and how it goes, but without further ado, let me get into it. First of all, let me just say this. I've always loved God since I was a little girl. I credit my grandmother for that a lot because she would take me to church with her when we lived in Canada. But when I moved to Michigan, I didn't go to church anymore. My mom and dad, they didn't have a church home, but they always taught us, to like love God and, to do right. So in college, when I first got into college, it's such a long testimony. I don't know where to start. Let me just start with how I started coming to God. I remember being in college and there was signs after signs after signs that I needed to get closer to God. But why would I want to get closer to God when I'm in the peak of my life where I want to go on spring break? I want to experiment. I want to date. I want to have sex. I want to drink. I want to enjoy being a freaking teenager and a young adult. What I thought that I would come to God when I was older and done with that life. And it wasn't even I was really out there or anything. Never was, never have been. But there were things that I was just not willing to give up just to go to church. I thought about God as God being in church, me being in church, wearing a long skirt and sitting in church all day. I just didn't want to do that. And I didn't think that you needed to do that in life, until you were old. So anyway, I remember a lot of occurrences on campus where God was calling me to him. So the first signs were that at the end of the stuff that I was doing, drinking and smoking and all this stuff was recreational and it was fun at the time, but I noticed that around my sophomore year, the end of my sophomore year, that I needed I was feeling empty. I was doing a lot of things because they were social and because they were fun in the moment, but I noticed that at the end of it, I still had problems and I still had feelings and emotions that I hadn't really dealt with. And those things were starting to catch up to me because the novelty and the funness of college was starting to wear off, and I was starting to have to deal with myself. I was starting to see my emotions coming through. My grandmother that I talked about, she passed away when I was in high school. And, I really hadn't had a chance to really feel those emotions alone. At the time too, I had a relationship that I was in. Well, it was a on and off relationship, a high school boyfriend on and off. And, I was still dating other people, still dating in college too. So I had an on and off relationship. I had got into some messy situations when I was in college in my first year like first and second year, and like the guys that I was talking to, they weren't really like worth my time, and the people that I was like giving my time to weren't worth my time, and I was just coming up empty in every situation. I was just coming up empty. Like, you know, when it was me with me, I just wasn't loving how I felt, you know? And so I remember one of my classmates, she was really like openly like a Christian, and she like headed up some of the Christian groups on campus. And I remember her talking to me and being in the car with her after doing an assignment, and her telling me about God and the love of God. And it was really like one of the first times that I seen someone my age that like loved God that much, and that actually was like a virgin, and that was like waiting for marriage. And she was teaching me about like waiting, and just talking to me in a language that I could understand. But even though I felt everything that she was saying, once again, I just was not ready to make that change yet. And then one of my closest cousins, like we were like this, like sisters, she got saved too. And you know, like my cousin was one of those people, she kind of like reminds me, she's like a really free spirit, and she always like you know, made her own path. And a lot of the things that she did, I would like follow her because she was my older cousin, and I looked up to her, and we ended up at Michigan State together. But she was going on her own journey. She had moved to Atlanta, and she ended up like really getting saved. She was super on fire for God, and it was almost like intimidating to me. She would call me sometimes and be like, God just keeps telling me to like talk to Shaughnessy about God, and she would be like, well, God has such a big purpose for you, Shaughnessy, and he keeps putting you on my mind. Like, I don't even feel like talking to you right now. I really don't have to be doing this, but like God has you on my heart, and you know, God really wants like an audience with you. And you know, as flattered as I was that God wanted these things, like I can even picture myself now on the phone with her. I remember being like, I was a janitor at the time at my for my job in college, and I remember like vacuuming the floors and stuff, and being on the phone with her, and her telling me this, and you know, getting off the phone with her, and I'm by myself, and I'm kind of processing what she's saying, and I'm like, you know what, I hear what she's saying, but I'm just not ready. Like, I love God, I really do, but like I still am trying to live out this life, you know? Like, I can't see, I just could not see myself doing all of that. Like, I remember her, like, in the way that she chose to be saved, like, you know, she was getting rid of her clothes that were like showing cleavage, or you know, just throwing away her skirts, giving me all of her stuff, and it was just too extreme for me. Like, the examples of what Christianity and what coming to God looked like were just too much, and too much of a sacrifice for me at that time. I was just like, this ain't for me. Like, and I love God, and I do want to know more, but not if it looks like this. Not if it's like this. And so, it's such a long story. I remember being on the bus in college, and I'm just getting emotional because, sorry, I was already emotional before I started this video, and I didn't want to do this video, but I hope that it helps somebody. But I'm trying to suck it up. But I remember being on the bus, and I remember God telling me like to get off the bus and to give money to this homeless person, or to talk to this homeless person. And I talked to the person, and you know, I'm like, do you need anything? And they're like, well, I just want some money to get a tent. And I remember going to get them a tent, and just like, those were like the ways that God was calling me. I remember going to like the local church services that they pub for the college students, and I remember really loving that, but just not knowing how to like do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do I do with this love that I have for God, and what do I do for this aching in my heart? What do I do with it? And how do I live my life? Like, how do I do this? Like, what, I'm supposed to just shut down everything? Like, who will I be what will that look like for me? It was just so much uncertainty that I just couldn't give in all the way to it at that time. But I just remember like being in this place where the guys that I liked, you know, the relationships that I was trying to be in and the work that I was trying to get from the guys in my life, it wasn't working out for me. I wasn't getting that. The friendships that I had, they were good, but they weren't great, and they weren't able to really give me that fulfillment. As much as I loved my parents, and you know, they were great and loving, my parents didn't have it for me either to give. And I just looked around. I just felt like I didn't have any role models or really true examples of where God was asking me to go. And I didn't really know how to get there on my own. And I didn't really know where to look to get them. And even when I did go to different churches and stuff like that, I just never felt like I fit in or I belonged at those churches. Even though like some of them were good and I felt inspired when I left, I just didn't feel like it was for me or I was at home. When I graduated from college is when it really hit. And so I remember like I finished school. I had some disappointments, a lot of disappointments, because I felt like the work that I put into college should have produced way more. It was like so many things in my life that were just not certain, and so many things in my life that weren't working out for me. I just graduated college. I was supposed to be like at the peak, like, you know, 21, I think I was 22 at the oldest. And, you know, like I'm trying to figure it out, but like I just felt so lost, you know? Like I would come to the city, I'm in Detroit now, and I would go out with my friends, and it just wasn't the same as college. It was awkward, it was dry, it was ghetto, it was this. Every time we went out, something would be happening and some drama. I was sick of the friendships that I had, a lot of them, because it was drama and it was just stuff I just didn't care about anymore. And I just felt like even my relationship, like I was in a relationship with Justin now, and it was just like that wasn't it for me. I loved everybody. No disrespect to nobody. I loved everybody at the time. But it was just that my heart was aching. My mind was heavy. My body was tired, you know? Like from like 4 constant years of just doing me, it was catching up to me. And being a little girl and having that part of me that always yearned for God and not feeding that part was starting to catch up to me. And I would just hear God's voice so much like throughout my day and just know that this was like he was for me, but just not knowing what to do with that. Yeah, that's where I was with it. And then on top of that, I was waitressing. And so when I was waitressing at the time, I would be serving and waiting on people that I just couldn't stand. Like it was like my arch nemesis was coming up in there, and I was serving them, and I'm like, you know, if I cussed, I would be like, you know, like I was pissed. I'm like, God, what's happening up in here? Like, what's going on? Like, I didn't do that bad. It's people worse than me. Like, I'm trying to figure it out. Like, what's going on? Like, I'm at a low, bro. And then, like, I remember running into this one lady that I met, and she was telling me about her story, her testimony, and she kind of made it make sense to me about how she used to have to do people's feet. And like, she like, God, like I am smart and educated woman and I'm doing feet. Like, you know, she had to do that for a job. And she was like, what I learned now, because she ended up being a pastor, what I learned now is, you know, God was teaching me how to be a servant. Now when I look back, I'm like, wow, God, you were teaching me how to be a servant, how to be humble. Because the old me, I was very arrogant, and I'm still working on that. Very arrogant, very bougie acting, very like high-minded, like thinking I'm better than people. Even though I didn't realize I felt that way, my actions, the way that I like thought in the, like, you know, my inner thoughts was like that. And I feel like God was like really humbling me and bringing me to a place where he could work, you know, work on me. But like, I just remember being at a point where I was just like full surrender, like, God, if you really are real, if you really want me as much as you want me, you got to show me somebody who is doing this. You want me to be celibate, and I felt like God, not even celibate, you want me to wait on you, you want me to hold off on sex. I felt like God was starting to show me like all the things I had to start getting rid of. Like friendships start falling away, family members started falling away, all the people that I felt like was holding me up. God started taking them. God started removing them from my life, and that was not easy. That was very hard because I loved a lot of those people, and I still do love them so much, and I just couldn't understand the amount of like disappointment and betrayal that I was going through. I just felt so misunderstood, and I just felt so confused at the time. I just did not understand it, and I still don't all fully get it. But I just knew that God was bringing me through a transition. And so as I started to transition, he was just calling me like closer to him. Whew, just see why I didn't want to do this video. So anyway, I remember having that conversation like, God, if you really want me to do this, please show me somebody who is doing it. Like, I've never been a person who had like a true role model. I would like always say, oh, I look up to Oprah, but then I would look at Oprah's life and be like, no, I don't want to be like just like that. And I don't even know Oprah. So how can she really be my mentor and my, guidance? And like I said, great parents, great family that I came from, but they never been where I've been. They never went to college. They never, like I had exceeded my parents in some areas. And then I couldn't really get their advice about like God too much because, that wasn't a part of their daily life either. And that's no fault to them. It's just facts. And so, I'm like, God, you got to show me something. And so I started going to churches that I was invited to. Like I went to one of the local churches here that's real popular, and I would go there, but I was still, like I said, I would still feel out of place. I would still feel out of place. I was hurting, and I'm still not really sure like exactly where all of that hurt came from. I know a lot of it was childhood. I know that a lot of it comes from, like I said, deep. I'll explain those later, but it was coming from a lot of different places, and a lot of things were just coming up. It was like I was just in a new season of confronting all of my demons. And, I would go to these churches and I would be like singing and worshiping and praising and shouting, and my shout would be too loud for some people. My praise would be too much. My cry would be too loud. My cry out would be too much. And I felt uncomfortable. But it wasn't until one of my friends that I actually met on Facebook. We didn't even really know each other like that. We just always stayed in touch on Facebook. Shout out to Trishan, my girl. Like always forever grateful for her reaching out to me and inviting me to her church. And when we was in high school, she used to like talk to me on the phone about her church, and I just really didn't really understand it fully. But one day I took her invitation, and that ended up being the church and the place that changed my life. Word in Action Christian Center, Apostle Clarence Langston and Pastor Robin Langston. If you guys know me, you know my story, you know my family. We ride out for them and for Word in Action because of how much it changed my life. And so I'm just going to stop there. I'm going to stop there, and maybe you guys can give me some ideas on what to talk about in part 2 of my testimony. But I'm just going to say that those are the things that brought me to God. If you have more detailed questions about them, or, if you have more that you want me to share about it, let me know. But that's my story. That's how I got to the place that I was. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that I'm missing out. So once again, pull that out of me in the comment section so that I can share more. But I hope that this video inspired you, that it blessed you. Hit that subscribe button for more videos, and to stay in touch and stay connected. Hit that notification bell so you know when I post. Follow me on Instagram. Do all of that so we can stay connected. But honestly, with this vulnerability, it really would mean a lot if you guys can comment and let me know, like, and share, so that I can be affirmed and keep sharing my story with you guys, and to know that this is the type of stuff that you want and that you need, because it's not easy to share like this, and it's a lot of vulnerability. So being supported in that would mean the world to me. So let me know what you guys think and what else I need to share. But I will see you guys in my next video. I'm sorry for the teaser, but I just gotta stop it here, and I will see you guys in my next video. And I just pray that you guys have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you soon. Peace.